And now a message from our friends at Fetching Food.
The 1970s and 80s had Elbow, Gravy Train, Purina, Meow Mix, and Bell Bottoms. You've changed your clothes, now change how you feed your pet. Like Bell Bottoms, kick the kibble and join us in the 21st century with the healthiest diet for dogs and cats. Feed naturally, feed raw, feed Fetching Foods.
Hello pups and kittens, and welcome to another fun-filled and action-packed edition of the Grimmer Next Door podcast. I'm your host Chris Green, and coming back to the podcast and sharing a great deal of her wealth of knowledge is my good friend Dr. Lori COGER. But before she comes in and we talk about all of our articles and so much more, let's go into our fact of the week. Well, kind of mirroring our times in the odd and bizarre time of pet food, let's go back to the Roaring Twenties and the Great Depression. Although pets were still primarily fed raw meats and table scraps, supplemented with what they could forage or hunt, commercial pet food changed from just biscuits. A variety of dehydrated meats, pellets, and canned foods made from meat and grain scraps became available for those Americans wealthy enough to purchase pet food. Initially, these products, especially the canned, featured horse meat. Public and congressional sentiment soon ended that, and other meat scrap sources were found. The Great Depression significantly impacted the commercial pet food industry, but the lack of regulations during this period allowed virtually anyone looking for an income source to brand a canned or bagged pet food. Canned foods especially expanded, capturing 91% of the still small commercial pet food market. The laws and regulations kind of seem like they've come back almost 100 years, about 90 if you really think about it. And getting closer to the 100-year mark, and it seems like a lot of the things are still going on. And of course, Sumo is agreeing with us as he's in the back. Well, by that sound, Dr. COGER is about to enter the podcast studio, and I am looking so forward to having our very first guest of the 2019 season, or whatever you want to call this, with my good friend, Dr. Lori COGER, DVM.
Oh, hello. Hold on a sec. Dad, we have a guest on the podcast.
This week on the podcast is my dear friend and favorite doctor out there. And again, I've said this before, this one particular person is the number one doctor in the world. We are rejoined by Dr. COGER, and this is now your show. I'm going to take the back seat and let you drive the bus. So thank you for being back on the podcast.
Oh, gosh, thank you. No pressure here.
I love doing that. That is fun.
So, that is fun.
New year?
How are you?
Oh, I'm great.
New year.
It's a new year, and I want to hear what's new.
What's new? Well, 2019 is our year. Still working, putting the final details together on the Healthy Dog Expo for April. Getting more guests registered, getting more incredible speakers. And let's see, doing more, working as you saw, more writing.
Yes.
Trying to get my views out there and help some owners wherever I can. Working on a really exciting project with hair trace mineral analysis. for dogs, helping with, do they have toxic elements like, say, mercury or aluminum in their body? You know, how is their nutritional status? Do they have the minerals they need? We're really early in the project, but so far it's been fascinating.
I bet.
And yeah, it's very cool. Very cool stuff. And loads of information. You know, the reports go on for like 10 pages of data of what was found in the hair and the ratios and all the fancy math stuff. I'm becoming a math junkie again.
I gotta ask the question though. Was this just something that came about, or was it something that you were thinking about? Will we do hair testing for humans?
Funny, as we were talking, yes, exactly. And this is a human company that also does dogs and cats and horses. And it's been around in the animal field for a while. And it's funny, as we were talking before about the doors that open for you and the things that come your way, but you still have to do the work and everything. I was introduced to this project through a recommendation of a friend to another friend to a friend of the hair testing project leader. And we just hit it off, and it's been going great guns ever since.
Wow. I'm dying to know more about this one. So obviously we'll talk more.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. I you know what? Let's just stop the podcast and let's just, we'll just talk about this. Sorry, folks, we're gone. Actually, I would love to.
We have other things we have to talk about first.
That's true. So,
It's true.
What was Dr. COGER doing on New Year's Eve?
What was I doing on New Year's Eve? Gosh, I actually went to bed early. I wasn't doing much of anything. I think I watched a movie and went to bed. Did not even try to stay up till 12. Our
party habits mirror exactly. I did stay up, but I did too. I also watched a movie, which I forget what I watched already, which was a week ago. But do you remember what you watched?
I watched the Battle of the Sexes, the Billie Jean King, Bobby Riggs movie.
Okay.
Which was, and recently also, I finally watched I, Tonya. I've been on the little sports scene.
Yes.
And they were both extremely entertaining.
Yes.
I found I, Tonya, I thought the performances were spot on. Mm-hmm. I love Allison Janney, who played Tanya's mother. I mean, the punchlines were there, and you could really see that was her. But, and God, this is terrible. I forget the actress who played Tanya, but
Margaret Robbie.
Her characterization was perfect, and the times in the film where they would step out of time and acknowledge that we were where we were in time now, and then go back to the plot. I just really enjoyed it.
It was a great movie.
I believe it's on Netflix, I think. So or Hulu, you can watch it for free.
Yes, it's, but now, only thing I will criticize the movie is you could tell that she was in between Harley Quinn and in Suicide Squad and this movie. You could just tell there was a little piece of it, but I loved it. That was great. That was definitely good.
And didn't they both win awards for their performances? Allison Janney did, I know.
I know Allison Janney did. I don't know if Margaret Robbie did, but she should have. I mean, it was a great performance.
Or at least she was nominated.
She might have been nominated. Now, one thing about that movie, and again, we've done this so many times, we go off the rails, which is what I love the most. But the one thing that I loved about that movie was she looked like Tonya Harding, and being old enough to remember that time and to have been around for it, I was like, yes, it's a period piece I actually remember. But it was great.
And I know they Hollywoodized it. They took some of the facts and kind of skewed them a bit.
Yeah.
To make it a better movie. But, that's what they have to do.
Yeah. But it was still, when you think about how her life was from, youth up until that point, I mean, she had a rough life, and to be able to achieve something, that was hard to believe.
Oh yeah, and the jump, the quad that she does, still, I think you can count on one hand the number of female skaters that can pull that off. because the strength and timing and skill it takes is huge, and strength is a huge factor. So, yeah, of course the men can do it. It takes a very special woman to be able to stay in the air that long.
You know, it's such an amazing, that was an amazing movie for so many different things. Performance was great. Story was great.
Mm-hmm.
Just the being able to put everything to make it look authentic to the time. They did a great job with that movie. And now I'm thinking, oh, well, I have it on digital. I'm going to have to watch that again because that was a good movie.
You have to watch it again. Yeah.
You just think to yourself, wow. And again, I still couldn't tell you what movie I watched this whole time. I'm thinking, but you know, I will say I did see House with the Clock in the Walls. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed that movie.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you know, what's odd is whenever I get to watch a movie, if let's say Claire is over at a friend's house or something, I typically still watch a kid's movie. I don't.
Oh, yeah?
It's programmed. So I don't really get to see a lot of adult type movies. But I remember my wife and I both watched I, Tonya, and we're just like, wow, this was good. And my wife was like, I still don't remember that time, but the only thing I will take away is back then, figure skating was actually fun, was great.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that these days.
Yeah, I don't follow it particularly. You know, now with social media, somebody will share an amazing skating routine, so you'll watch some skating videos and such. I think that's how I actually stumbled on the I, Tonya. But it takes the exceptional persona, whether it's a Tonya Harding or there's some characters in skating that really kind of push the limit, and it becomes entertainment beyond skating. There's a Russian guy who does a routine to a Tom Jones song that is brilliant and funny, and I mean it's an entertainment performance, and it just happens to be skating. You know, he could be dancing this, he could be doing all sorts of things. But yeah, it's those exceptional individuals that push the envelope. And most of these skaters are doing the forms and the routine stuff that is kind of boring unless you're into skating, I guess.
Yeah, down to even the music. It's just not as impacting as it used to be. Again, I'm having one of those back in my day moments.
But you know, the people who can do and you know, please forgive me if you're into skating, my knowledge is rudimentary. You know, the people who do the fun routines versus the classical routines.
Yes. Not
to take anything away from the people who can skate a classical routine, classical music, beautiful movements, everything correct. But there's the entertainment factor that someone is going to do something to pop or a different kind of music and have fun with the costumes, interact with the audience. That becomes an entertainment.
It does.
Event.
And see, I don't know much. I mean, my level of knowledge of figure skating is very little. I played hockey, so I only saw the ice from a different side. But I look at how the routines are, like, you know, the Olympics, the Winter Olympics happened. I'm like, yay. And I'll watch some of the figure skating and I'm just like, no, it's just not what it used to be. I don't know. There's maybe not that competitive heat. I don't know.
Yeah. And then you have, you know, the ice dancing groups, the pros, and they have so much more freedom. Of course, you know, you and I can't speak to the rules of figure skating and what they have to do and what they're not allowed to do. And the French skater, Shirley somebody, who would do handsprings.
Yes.
I mean, the crowd loved it. And I mean, here's this woman and she's skating and all of a sudden she's doing a handspring. And they banned the movement, the skating officials.
Yeah.
Because of whatever reason, you know, everybody couldn't do it. How do you score it? I don't know. But it's like, hey, this woman's doing handsprings off her skates. I want to watch this show.
I like that they can't do it, so we're going to ban it. I like that idea.
Or, or we don't know how to score it, or it's, you know, I'd be like, hey, creativity points, you know, +5.
+5 for Miller, that's nice. That's generous. You can do something. I definitely can't. Of course, I'd mark them all 10s because I'm like, I couldn't do any of that.
I couldn't do any of that.
I will say, though, the one thing about figure skating that I think I enjoy more than anything else, and it's one of the sad things, is I love the falls. It's just one of those. I root for them. Oh, you have to. It's like watching NASCAR. You don't root for anything except for the accidents. I'm
always impressed by how some of these folks will fall.
Yeah.
And they'll like turn it into a spin, and all of a sudden they're back on their feet.
I know.
This is brilliant.
Well,
you fell and it looks good. Again, +5.
+5. Yeah, when you can make a falling
I
in
saw
art.
my butt, we all just laugh.
Well, I mean, maybe that's why I laugh, because I'm like, yes, they fell. They're not perfect. They're still like me. I can do that. That's what I can do in figure skating, and that's it.
Yep.
But yeah, obviously we spend 10 minutes on a movie, but it's funny as all get out, and something that's relatable. And again, I love the movie. I would definitely recommend it. And then, of course, for all of you who like falls and everything else, the regular Olympics or other things, they're there too.
Actually, I follow on Facebook, there's this site called People Are Awesome. And they show people doing the most incredible stunts of all different types. And then they always have one day where they show the bloopers and the people that fall. And it's like, oh my gosh, thank God you didn't get hurt.
Yeah, I don't want to see them get hurt.
You really, really fell. No, of course not.
But it is fun to see them fall, though. I mean, it's kind of like, I think that's what Jackass, why that was such a huge success, is that it was people hurting themselves. I mean, even though we're talking about just falling and ice skating, but in Jackass they would hurt themselves, and that was such a wonderful moment for me. I didn't get it, but it was still fun for people. It's entertainment. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where are you?
But anyway, we digress as we often do.
As we do, and we do it so well. So what has put you on the soapbox lately?
Oh God, yes, my soapbox. It's getting worn out. I kind of went on a rant, actually just before New Year's. And as we've talked about before, we have this issue of the taurine responsive or taurine deficiency dilated cardiomyopathy happening to golden retrievers, among other dogs, where they're eating the grain-free diets, and the amount of taurine, an amino acid, a protein component, is not sufficient, and the dogs are getting heart disease from it. And, sadly, loads and loads of dogs are being affected. This is truly a huge problem and needs to be brought forward. But the misinformation that's being spread by some of the authorities, and I say misinformation, that is my opinion, based on my Cornell training and experience, both undergraduate in animal science focusing on nutrition and veterinary college. The focus on these foods and why it's happening is frustrating. And what they're telling people about how to choose a good food, I think, is bad advice. And so one of the key things that the powers that be and all the people who read them and continue to disseminate the advice is that you should only choose dog foods that have been tested by an AAFCO feeding trial. AAFCO stands for the American Association of Feed Control Officials, which is not a government agency. It's a private organization made up of people who work in the dog feeding industry. So it has no governmental authority whatsoever. But they actually write the templates for laws that they then hand to the government and say, we want this passed. Only situation that I'm aware of where industry essentially writes laws and government rubber stamps it. Totally un-American in my book. Totally not what our process should be. And it's not like we're talking about refrigerators here. We're talking about food that's going to nourish an animal. It's crazy. So what folks don't understand and what gets me on my soapbox is what an AFCO feeding trial actually is. And I was given the actual pages from the AFCO manual, which I do need to buy, that detail how you do an AFCO feeding trial. And I thought, okay, this will be good. I'll find out, just what this is. And basically what an AFCO feeding trial is they take laboratory dogs, usually beagles, usually under a year of age. They start off with 8 of them, of which 6 must complete the study. They get a physical exam at the beginning and at the end of the study. By the way, the study, how long do you think the study lasts?
Well, I know the answer. But
you know the answer. Okay.
I know the answer. It's not fair to say, but I was shocked because isn't it supposed to be between a year and a half?
I don't know what it's supposed to be. I mean, for me, if you're telling me this food is good for my dog's life, I would want 10 years.
Yeah.
No, it's only 6 months. 6 months. 26 weeks. And so the dogs during that time, they're fed the food in question. And they must survive for 26 weeks. They must not lose more than 15% of their body weight. Now, they may be fed either a proportioned amount of food, a measured amount, or they can feed them what we call ad lib, which means food is always available. How many beagles do you think are going to lose weight if food is always available?
0.
There's no criteria about how much weight they can gain.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, the weight loss, there's not going to be any weight loss in a beagle that can eat whatever it wants. And once during the study, at the very end, they measure 4 blood parameters. They measure essentially their red blood cell count by percentage, called a hematocrit. They measure their hemoglobin, 1 blood protein called albumin, and 1 adrenal enzyme. 4 things. And that's a feeding trial. If you can have dogs, essentially 1 year old or just under, survive 6 months, you've got a feeding trial.
That's ridiculous.
Absurd.
It is.
That is no test of anything. I mean, ask any college student. You can survive 6 months on mac and cheese, ramen noodles, bagels and coffee and beer. Hardly a balanced diet, but you'll survive.
It's still that's still healthier than what a lot of those dog foods are. Just saying.
I agree. But, and people are bowing down at the altar of AFCO feeding trials like this is something to be respected. Yeah. To me, I'd be embarrassed if I said my food, passed an AFCO feeding trial. So what?
Yeah. Well,
and
okay.
I only have to have 6 dogs. I can start with 8. 2 can drop from the study for whatever reason. And how does that compare to the real world?
It doesn't.
These are laboratory bred dogs. They aren't living in people's homes. They aren't having the activity that the average dog does. They're not necessarily getting flea and tick medications, heartworm, anything else that the average dog does. And there's so many factors that are considered that, how do you say this represents the real world? It doesn't. Yet we've got these authorities saying if it doesn't pass an AFCO feeding trial, you shouldn't feed it.
See, my takeaway to that, and we were talking about this when you wrote this. First, let's just say, for sake, that this dog was on a high grade kibble, and it's between 8 to 12 months old. It's going to still have a high metabolism. It's still going to be energetic. It's still going to exercise, run off a lot of its overused or underused energy. And then you're going to put this dog in for 20-some weeks on this new crap diet. It takes, 10 to 12 weeks for the whole body to get used to?
Yeah, I think, and this is a really good point that you're raising, My pal, Dr. Karen Becker, who is the bomb when it comes to knowledge about this sort of stuff. She said to me, and she has helped me improve my own dog's feeding plan because I'm a do-it-yourself raw diet feeder.
Right.
She said, Lori, nutritional deficiency is a very slowly progressive disease. It's going to take a year or longer to show up. It's not like your dog getting Lyme disease and whammo, he's lame. Or, some other malady. It's kind of sneaky. You don't catch the earliest signs because there aren't any. You sometimes don't catch the mid-range signs because they're so subtle. And then all of a sudden you're in a predicament. And guess what? It's not going to happen in 26 weeks.
No,
especially when you have the advantage of youth. Now, if you said I'm going to start with 10-year-old dogs,
different.
See how they do for 6 months, then you might see something. But I see dogs in practice that eat everything from, the best fresh food diet anyone can design or produce to the dogs that eat bottom of the barrel, Benefil, kibbles, and bits, Old Roy. When they're a year old, they can all look pretty darn good. When they're 2 years old, they can all look pretty darn good. Then the dogs have been eating crap start falling apart. Whereas the fresh food and better food dogs shine. So, the AFCO feeding trial means nothing. Now it ends. The second part of this is the dog foods that are formulated to AFCO standards, meaning they meet by calculation the recommendations AFCO has. They're the same foods as the foods that they're feeding and using a feeding trial to prove. They just haven't done the feeding trial. So big, hairy deal to me. If you formulated to AFCO standards, I know what's in there, assuming your math is correct and your analysis is accurate. So I can fairly evaluate that food and decide if it's something I would feed my pet.
We'll see and AFCO is, and again, having a wonderful conversation with them, and my time with them, all they are is a lobbyist. And they're there just to argue that all these companies under their umbrella, who pay probably millions of dollars per year to be part of this, are doing the best that they can do with the ingredients that they have. Now, again, I can take some mud outside.
I wouldn't say the ingredients they have. I would say the ingredients they're choosing to use, because they could choose to go get USDA inspected and passed grade A beef.
You're right.
They don't choose to because they know they can't put a product together that people would buy. It would just be too expensive.
As a lobbyist group, they're going to spin those words to say the ingredients they have. Oh my gosh, yes. So that it sounds more. As I pointed out, there are lobbyist industry groups, and they're suggesting the content of laws. Last time I checked, laws were supposed to be written by the people we elected, the Senate and the Congress, not industry. True.
And I don't fault them for doing their job. Their job is to make profit for their companies. Go for it. But don't hurt our dogs and cats on the way to getting that profit.
I will say one thing for AFCO, and it is a compliment, and that is they're very good at their job. Unfortunately, it's very bad for the consumer, but very good at their job.
It's deceptive to the consumer.
Yes.
And, the consumer takes things on faith. And then you have, the rebels that we are that say, wait a second, prove it, show me, or as I think veterinarians should be, the scientists that we've been trained to be, to say, what is the animal in question? What does its biology dictate it eats? Now let's formulate a diet for it. We're not feeding horses chicken.
No.
We understand they're grazing animals, they're herbivores, they eat grains and grass and the like. But why do we feed dogs stuff that they shouldn't be eating. You know, a la pea protein concentrate.
Well,
Because it's a cheap filler, and we can.
If you asked AFCO, they would say it this way. We're doing the best we can with the limited ingredients that we can come up with for the price valued for the consumer. Right. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful spin on saying we buy garbage and we feed it, but we cook it at a high temperature. So we're taking stale already
we
raw
cook it at a high temperature, destroying the integrity of some of the ingredients.
Yes.
And making it into stuff that does not behave normally in the body. And, you know, to circle back to the trace mineral stuff, which we have to talk about down the road, you know, I'm looking at the test results of some of that, because I know what these dogs eat when I see their test results, looking at what it's doing in their body. And hair is a beautiful thing to assess minerals and such, because it's sitting on the dog's body for 6 months or more. So I get a snapshot of time and a good amount of time.
Which is awesome. And I'm dying to know more about that. That whole study is just now you have me completely engaged.
There is so much cool science going on in the dog health world. And I have to give credit to the people leading the charge, which is Dr. Becker, Rodney Abib, and Susan Garrett. And they are putting it out there and putting so much information in front of owners to say, hey, here's what you need to know. You know, how can we help you do a little bit better? And they actually were part of the Facebook. Facebook is having a beta subscription trial sort of thing, where you can actually subscribe to a private area and get information. And they're giving it away for $10 a month. That all goes to Pause for Change. It all goes to the charity. Well, all the profit. Facebook takes the cut.
Of course.
But it's like, for $10 a month, you're getting exclusive content from these 3 people. It's amazing. And I'm just blown away. We were talking about numbers today, and it's like, more people need to take advantage of this. I think it's on Facebook. It's Insider Scoop. But if you go to Life with Dogs and Cats, you'll find the links to join. It is, I mean, people get wigged out about paying for stuff on Facebook, but they'll all pay for extra lives on Candy Crush. Give these people $10 and let them help you. It is worth every dime.
Wait, time
every
out.
Dime.
You pay for your Candy Crush lives?
I do not. I don't.
I would never. I don't ever pay on any of those.
No, I don't either. But look it up. Candy Crush is the number one lucrative app, because people will pay for their, you know, little cheats and stuff and lives. And it's like, you know, you can wait 20 minutes and you can play again.
But I don't have 20 minutes.
I don't have 20 minutes. I must crush candy. It's crazy.
It took me only a minute to feed my dog kibble. I have now 19 more to go. What do I do with that?
I don't know, but I was blown away when I read the stats. I would never think of paying for Candy Crush.
No, those premium games, I have a couple on my phone, and I just let the time generate. I'm like, I'm not paying for this.
Yeah, when I run out of lives, I jump to another game if I'm sitting around.
Right.
I burned through a lot of things waiting for an oil change the other day.
Oh, gosh,
I can play.
Yes, those are fun. I had a question, though. I did have one question going back to the taurine. Yeah. And you had mentioned the golden retrievers. Now, I was going to ask you last time, we ran out of time, which we do so well because we're talking about Candy Crush and I, Tanya. Yeah. So we do this. Yeah. But it's worth the conversation. I mean, it is. But now, with the golden retrievers and the taurine, was it, and this is the one thing that I couldn't really conceptualize in my brain, was it golden retrievers that seemed to be more inclined to health issues over all breeds, or was it just more pronounced?
Good question. Number one, God bless anybody who has a golden retriever, because you
Yes.
now have the number one cancer breed, the number one health challenge breed in the country, as far as my knowledge goes. It used to be
Man.
boxers were the cancer breed, Dalmatians were a problem breed. It's Goldens now. Something like 1 in 2 Goldens will get cancer. It's heartbreaking.
Oh my gosh.
When they first started noticing this low taurine dilated cardiomyopathy association, it was in a group of Goldens. And so, being good researchers, as I understand the story, the Stern Lab said, hey, let's start looking for more Goldens. And, started reaching out, testing more dogs. And then other breeds started cropping up, because certainly other breeds do get DCM. Dobermans, Great Danes come to mind, Newfies. And there are papers in the literature, the scientific literature. I think there's a Newfie report and a couple others. But Goldens, I would say like the first year seemed, or maybe even the first 6 months, seemed to be the most common breed. Then as awareness spreads, and this is thanks to social media, people were testing a number of breeds and finding out how widespread it was. And, I applaud the Stern Lab for the research they're doing, and the social media groups that are sharing information on results. And this is all owner driven. That people are testing their dogs, sending in the results. It's going into a giant spreadsheet with what the dog was fed, what their taurine level was, how their cardiac echo was, any other relevant notes, all so we can get enough dogs to make some meaningful statistical statements about what's going on and what we can do about it.
Wow.
But now, we've got Border Collies, we've got Labradors, we've got mixes, we've got all sorts of dogs coming up with it.
See, what's really sad is, and this is something that you've seen the evolution to, and we've probably talked about it before, is in just a couple decades, we've seen a decrease in dogs in just their life expectancy go from what would have just been maybe a respiratory problem because a pug has a smushed face, to this, 1 in 2 golden retrievers will have cancer, or even just the osteoporosis that because there's just not enough calcium in these foods, so the dog's bones are breaking up or their muscles are shriveling up. It is so bizarre and crazy, and we know where it's coming from.
Lifespan, you would think with all the scientific knowledge we have and the things we've done over the past decades, that our dogs should be living longer, not shorter lives.
Right.
And they're leading shorter lives. And they're succumbing. I had a 3-year-old pit bull die of lymphoma recently. Like, you're 3 years old. You should be in the absolute prime of your life. And instead you have an immune system cancer, and it's going to end your life. It's heartbreaking.
Now with that situation, was it always there and just metabolized over time, or do you think it developed after year 1 or something?
I honestly don't know. I only knew this dog as a young adult dog. I didn't know her as a puppy. But I know she had a reasonable standard of care. Her vet records were she was in 4 exams at appropriate times and stuff. I don't think the people did anything crazy. So I honestly don't know.
So
but I know, 20 years ago, I didn't see 3-year-old dogs with cancer.
So I'm wondering how many puppies are born with some kind of cancer-like gene that is just sitting there dormant, and over a short amount of time starts to grow into its own.
Starts to activate.
Yes.
Or what triggers it. Well, and that's why, some of the research that needs to be done, it's kind of out there research. But places like the Broad Institute in Boston, the vet school in Helsinki, the Dog Risk Group, they're doing those kind of studies of the normal dog body and the abnormal. And they're the ones who are going to figure this out. It's not going to be the dog food companies, and it's not going to be the drug companies.
No.
And it's not going to be what they fund at a university, sadly.
I honestly think that Big Kibble, I think that they know what all these things link to. I think that they have this research, and I will almost bet the farm on that. That it'll come out 10, 20 years from now. It'll come out, and it'll be like, oh, we knew, we just had to, bury it.
Yeah, I mean, I know they buried a lot of things, but
Yes.
I honestly am not sure about that, Chris.
Yeah.
Because I think in some ways, from the financial interest, they do the bare minimum.
Oh,
and
yes.
just looking back look at the AFCO trial. 4 parameters AFCO touches on. Only at the end of the trial. They don't check the numbers going in. Which, hello, wouldn't you want your baseline and then your end result?
Yeah.
And on my blog at Healthy Dog Workshop, I put in an actual lab report from one of my dogs, and that showed the basic lab work, and this is just basic stuff, nothing fancy, that I do on my patients, and obviously my own dog, when I want to see how's your body working. And I don't know, it goes on for 2 pages. There's a whole lot of parameters tested compared to the 4 that AFCO tests. And for me, that's information.
Well, yeah.
And that's giving me stuff to act on, stuff as an early detection, if you will. Things like that.
But wouldn't you keep the baseline out? I mean, if you keep it out, you can obviously prove that the dog was beyond healthy going into the study.
My question would be, if you had the baseline and then the end of trial study numbers were not as good,
yes,
then you look bad. Even if they're normal, still, you look bad.
After you said, you know what I would do, I thought exactly, I know exactly what you're going to say.
You know where I was going.
Oh,
yeah.
so
but
quickly.
It's so, and as far as I can determine, in going back through AFCO history, these studies or the protocols, I should say, were written, I think in the 1960s, maybe even before that. So, granted, maybe more tests weren't really available then. We didn't have a full chemistry. But, damn it, we're in 2019.
Yeah.
Run a full chem. Run a full CBC. Do the thyroid profile. You own a dog food company. You can have your own laboratory and do it totally in-house.
Well, you could, but that doesn't mean you should.
True.
Again, I'm speaking as a lobbyist.
Yes. And I'm really proud. I came across this food company called Just Food for Dogs. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever. But they're actually did a trial. And the full data is available on their website. They used 3 times as many dogs as an AFCO trial. They went twice as long, and they ran 3 full CBC chems over the time period. And they used dogs of varying ages and sizes. So, it's not the perfect study, but it's a whole lot more representative of the real world and gives you a whole lot more information than 6 dogs for 26 weeks.
I actually talked to them, not on the podcast. Yeah, I did. I talked to them. I not on. Actually, after I read your article, literally, I kid you not. After I finished the last word, I researched. I sent them a message. They're really nice. I haven't locked anything down to have them on the podcast, but we went back and forth, and I was just blown away, going, "Oh wow! At least you guys are trying." Yeah. At least a try.
And, and that's all I think any dog owner would ask is, are you trying to do your job better? Are you trying to make a better product? Are you keeping an open mind with regard to the science and saying, let's think outside the box. Do I have to make it a kibble? Is there a better way? And I'm sure in other industries, the same questions would apply. Let's take making airplanes. Is there a better way to make a more fuel-efficient airplane, or a faster airplane, or a safer airplane?
It's almost
it's all the same.
Well, look at that one airplane that they're coming out with that will be able to go, oh my gosh, is it U.S. to Taiwan in 3 hours or something like that?
Wow.
I mean, It's just crazy how fast this plane is going to go.
Look at where the Concorde was. I mean,
Yes.
There are no more Concordes as far as I understand.
No. Well, Smithsonian.
It certainly, okay. It certainly made the run pretty fast.
Yeah, what was the Concorde? 5 hours, I think. I want to say.
I want to say 3 to 5.
Yeah, it was right around that, and I think it was. I can't remember if it was New York to London
New York to London.
It was it?
It crossed the Atlantic in 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was New York or LA to London, but yeah, it was really quick. Yeah. It was the same distance. It probably was New York to London, but
yeah, it was. Yeah, it flew at Mach 2, twice the speed of sound.
I think this one goes to Mach 3 or 4 is what I read. I read it like last month, so obviously I don't have all my facts. But yeah, it was like, whoa, finally. Because honestly, and I know, you've done it, traveling, especially when you're traveling over the ocean like that, it's endless. Mm-hmm. And you just wish it would just end. So something that could go a little faster, definitely necessity. Yeah. Yeah. When you're flying for 14, 15, 16 hours, and you're just going, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully I'm sleeping. Because I got the fancy bunk or whatever.
Oh, those are gorgeous, those little eggs.
It's just like, you want to be more efficient.
Yes.
You want to just get there.
Now,
but you want to get there in one piece, so it's got to be safe.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the thing. And I still don't think that the Concorde was unsafe. I think that there was just one little thing that happened, and they were looking for a reason to say, oh, let's stop.
To shut it down. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's stop it and go from there. Now, this kind of goes into the next one of your articles that I just loved. And, well, you already know. I don't have to tell you. Pet food linked to neurological. Now, I did toss one thing, and I said treats go with that as well, because we treated somebody's dog because they had really bad neurological problems, really aggressive dog, and we asked, what kind of treats are they on? And it was a low-grade treat. They stopped eating the treats. The dog stopped being aggressive. It was bizarre.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, there's the link right there. So I thought that was interesting, and I was like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about it, because obviously it's just amazing to think. Now, what is your assessment on the food causing neurological issues?
Well, wait, the food causing neurological issues or the food not addressing neurological issues?
Well, we can go either way to that, because it really could go both ways.
I mean, could it? Sure. The thing that I get always is, being in my field, prescription diets. And both Purina and Hills came out with BD, brain diet, and Purina came out with NeuroCare. And they were trying to essentially emulate keto diet and more biologically appropriate food. But it's like, why are you so married to the kibble form? Because it's what they do. You can't make kibble without a significant starch load, and you can't have a healthy dog eating a significant starch load. But all they're doing is selling kibble. It's just mind-boggling.
What gets me on that is how do you even come up with, we're doing a keto brand type diet with starch? How is that even possible?
Well, because they don't, it's not. And, for me, I'm certainly a fan of ketogenic diets for certain conditions. And a ketogenic diet, by definition, is a moderate protein, high fat, ultra low carb diet. To me, ultra low carb means 5% or less. And the Purina NeuroCare is 33% carbs. That's nowhere near 5. And when you actually measure the blood parameters on a dog eating a keto diet, you'll find their blood sugar is around 70 or less, and their ketones are 0.3 or better or higher. And there's no way you can eat 33% carbs and have a BG of 70. You're going to be 100. So that glucose in the bloodstream is feeding cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It's feeding abnormal brain function in some of these dogs. Whereas ketones do not feed cancer and do not aggravate the brain the way glucose could in some of these seizure dogs. But again, it's going back to marketing. It's just they're marketing. Oh, here's your solution. It comes in the yellow bag. It comes in the blue bag.
Which, for anybody who has ever decided, you know what, I need to read while I'm at the store, and I'm guilty of this. I like to go to the pet food aisle or pet feed aisle, and I love to read the ingredients out loud.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yes, I'm that person. But it's fun.
Great. And I would say not aisle, but aisles.
Yes.
Because in my pet food stores, it's at least 2 aisles. And, you stand there and your mind gets scrambled because you see, row upon row of brightly colored, different bags, different brands, different formulas. And somebody who doesn't know what they're looking at just stands there and doesn't know what to choose. And then some helpful employee comes over and guides them toward something, whatever's on special that week.
Helpful employee.
Well, and I know I sound judgmental and I don't.
No, I loved how you just made that sound so nice. I loved how you did that.
They're doing their job.
Yes.
And they may not know. They're recommending the best brand based on the knowledge that they have been given. Unfortunately, that knowledge in many cases came from the person selling the product.
Or what their parents fed their dog.
Yeah. Or whatever. But, if you're working in a pet store, you're probably a dog food feeder. The exceptional one would be choosing it from the raw fed freezers. Mm-hmm. But, you have to, you want to keep that job, you have to sell kibble. Mm-hmm. I personally couldn't do it.
Can you just see me doing that?
My brain would melt down. Yeah.
Run! Don't buy it! Run!
Don't buy it! Well, and the bottom line is, when you look at all those beautiful bags that are well designed by professional designers with the advice of marketing people, they're great. They're works of art. Mm-hmm. Beneful has won more packaging awards, I think, than any other dog food. One of the worst dog foods on the planet.
At least they won an award. They won some award.
But the thing is, when you rip that bag open and look at what's inside, you can't tell who made it, what's in it, how old it is, what it contains, or if it's spoiled. Now, I can rip open a package of chicken and tell you a chicken made this, and it's a chicken leg. I can tell you whether it stinks and is spoiled. Mm-hmm. I can actually look at the package and see who made it. Mm-hmm. And I know what's in it. It's chicken. Mm-hmm. It's a chicken leg. There's some skin on it. There's a bone. There's some meat. Totally different scenario than the little brown nuggets.
You know what I always think every time I see kibble? I think whenever you go to McDonald's and you get their breakfast that has on a McGriddle that has the McDonald's logo stamped on it.
God, yes.
I'm like, why is Old Roy and Purina not putting their own logo on each kibble? Wouldn't that be cute? That would be so cute.
Oh my gosh, you're right. And I'll confess, I have eaten those breakfast sandwiches. They're horrible for you, but boy, do they taste good.
Yeah, that's the problem with it, especially the McGriddle. I'll have a McGriddle once in a while, and I'll tell you that soaked biscuit in syrup is just so good. But as you're eating it, I'm gonna pay for this later, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
But the difference
or
is,
I know I better enjoy this now because I'm not having another one for 9 months.
well, yeah,
Um,
it's that way.
but and I will say, having worked with a veterinarian who did maple syrup, oh my God, every Christmas she would give all of us a little bit of their homemade maple syrup.
Oh gosh.
Oh my God, there is nothing like the real thing, and it doesn't taste anything like McDonald's. It is a zillion times better.
Well, yeah. I mean,
So, yeah. But it's like, all right, well, I don't, and you don't feel bad after you eat it. That's the other giveaway. You could have pancakes with Dr. Rafter's syrup on them, and you felt great. You eat that McGriddle, like you said, you pay for it.
well, I don't know if it's the McGriddle or that hash brown. It's either or, but
Could be.
but it probably is all of it together. But boy, and I have to figure that has to be what a dog or cat is thinking when they're first eating kibble is, ooh, this is some tasty garbage. I know it's bad for me. You know that they have to know. This tastes too good for me to think it's, good for me.
Well, I don't know. But I had the opposite experience with an owner the other day who told me, and, we were talking about her dog, and he gained a pound or two, and, Coach didn't look so good. And she's like, I really tried the homemade diet, and he just became so crazed for his food. And I couldn't stand it, so I put him back on kibble, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he told you how happy he was, and you couldn't handle it because, she couldn't accept that, oh my God, he was like crazed. She thought he was getting aggressive. It's like, no, he just hit the nutritional, mega ball, power ball, or whatever it was.
Finally, Mom, you're feeding me what I want.
Yeah. And once we talked about it, she's like, well, so that was okay. I'm like, yes, that was validation and thank you for your efforts. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe I went back to kibble. So she went back to the other. But you'll definitely see dogs when you hit what they need. Oh my gosh, they are all over it.
Well, I've pretty much been able to articulate it this way. You take a dog that's on kibble, you put them on raw. At the beginning, they're a little confused. What is this?
Right. They're uncertain.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what this is. Then in between that 8 to 12 week mark, maybe sooner, they come out of this cloud that they were in, and they're more vibrant and more alive and alert. And then when it's time for dinner, they're like, oh my gosh, it's this again. Yes, I'm going to eat good.
Yes.
It's such a weird reaction. And it's almost like the only way of putting it is it's putting a bowl of macaroni and cheese in front of your child for dinner and saying, here, this is dinner. They're just going to look at you and go, really? Oh my gosh. Even though I know it's obvious, it's obviously not healthy. I'm just saying it's equivalent to that reaction of a human.
Yeah.
And I always tell people your dog is in this twilight zone, in this fog. And until you can lift that fog, there's just no way of explaining it. Wait until you see that life come into their eyes, and even their eyes vibrate. They light up. But you're training them to have the taste of blood. No, that's not what this is. No. This is not shark-infested water.
Exactly.
I didn't just throw chum in there.
It always was mind-boggling to me, having fed raw and always having dogs that just, you put the bowl down and they dived in. People talking to me about their finicky dogs, I'm thinking, why do you have a finicky dog? And admittedly, I had never, all of my dogs had come to me either as puppies or were born in my house. So I have fed them from an early age and introduced them to a variety of foods and such. So, I don't have finicky dogs. I have dogs that are jumping to get their food, so to speak. And, even my inherited dog who came to me, he had to be 10 or 11 when he came to me. he was fed the same way. So I have zero experience in finicky dogs. But I really think it's, eating kibble at a young age and being fed in crazy ways and not having something you really relish.
That's it.
And not being introduced to different stuff. I think of my puppy Prank, who used to come to work with me at one hospital. And we used to get Chinese lunch a lot. We had this great Chinese restaurant that did an amazing steamed chicken with snow peas with ginger garlic sauce on the side. And so Frank would eat lunch with me, and I'd be like, here, have a snow pea. Here, have some Chinese cabbage. And he's like, this is the greatest thing ever. He didn't care whether it was chicken or not. He thought the carrots were great. But he learned from an early age, it's being put in front of your face. Eat it.
Well,
and he would eat anything.
That's what drives me nuts. Well, dogs, they don't eat any vegetables. Yeah, they do. It's still there. If they ate a rabbit, there would be some plant-based in that stomach. Come on.
Exactly.
I never thought that.
It's not a huge amount.
Right.
And we won't even go into the vegan dog food thing.
Done that.
Yeah.
Don't know if I want to do that again.
No. Does vegetable matter benefit dogs, or fruit matter for that matter? I think
yes.
So. For the fiber, for the unique vitamins and nutrients that are in there, it is a small percentage of their diet. I mean, these are protein, fat, organ eaters in my book. But, in a prey world, they'd be eating hair. In our world, we don't feed hair, so we're getting the fiber from somewhere. Their GI tract needs some.
And that's still where I go back. I still go back to insect base and still love the idea that there is a way of working in an insect-based diet that's going to be far greater than anything we're doing right now. I just think that it's going to take time. But that's the interesting.
And I think it's an interesting concept. I don't know how public acceptance will go.
In the U.S.,
in a way, it's gross. Yeah.
Yes. In the U.S. it is.
Other cultures where insects are used, I think it'll be accepted.
Oh, yeah. Tens of thousands of different insects a day are being consumed in different parts of the world. And they're healthier than we'll ever be. But the fact is that we're just so grossed out, there's no way. And A, it's not fried, so we don't want it. And B, it's a bug. So those are two things. Can you just imagine stepping on food? A Twinkie walks by and you step on it. That's obviously you can see where my brain is Twinkies and McDonald's. But bad idea. But in a serious note, I mean, there are people who will eat a bug that's chocolate covered and it could be a grasshopper, and the benefits are astronomical. We're like, no, just give me that Twinkie. It's ridiculous.
Well, and someone, I think I'll have to do this. A nutritional comparison of the Twinkie with kibble. What is the protein, carbohydrate, fat breakdown? How do they compare?
Oh, I hate to say it though.
I would assume the protein's a lot lower in the Twinkie. But we're talking about an uber processed food.
Yeah, but you're going to find more calcium.
Matter.
You're still going to find more calcium in a Twinkie than you will in kibble.
So?
I think so. The other thing that I would see with kibble is that the meat already in kibble is already moldy and really it's spoiled. Where there really isn't anything in a Twinkie that's spoiled. That's why they last so long, is because of...
Right. Well, and we know in kibble, the last step of making kibble is to spray on fat, because that makes it tasty. And you know this if you've ever handled it, because your hand feels oily after you stick it in the food bag.
Yes.
But fat starts going rancid upon exposure to oxygen. And Steve Brown, one of the leading dog food formulators in the world, estimates that 2 weeks after exposure to oxygen, most of the fat on kibble is rancid. Now, rancid fat is not nutritious. Fat needs to be fresh to be used for calories and such in the dog's body. So, kibble is spoiled 2 weeks after you open the bag.
And
And
I
how
don't
many
even give it that
people
long.
buy? Yeah, depends on. Well, you don't know how many little pinholes were opened
Uh-huh.
in it in transport and such,
Mm-hmm.
unless you see that it's vacuum sealed, and those bags are obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But still, most people buy the huge bag.
Mm-hmm.
They
Well,
want, they buy enough for a month.
you
Well,
saw
guess
that
what? 2 weeks
47
into it,
pounds, $17.
yep,
Hey, good deal.
that's incredible. That is incredible.
Well, it wasn't even 17.
Absolutely incredible.
It was still 1678. So with tax, it goes
Yeah.
over the 17 marker. Oh my
So what is that, like
gosh.
35 cents a pound or something?
Oh gosh, you know what? I didn't even
Probably.
do the math on that. Oh gosh, I don't
You
want
gotta
to.
do the math.
Oh, I don't want to. That'll make it worse. That'll make it so much worse.
How many pounds? 37?
47. It was 41 with an additional 6 free pounds on those bags. Oh gosh, that is.
36 cents a pound. So
Oh,
what kind of meat can a company sell you at a profit that costs 36 cents a pound to the consumer?
oh my gosh.
That is the grossest of stuff.
You know, we can really take this
And
to another level of seeing how much an inmate meal costs per day, which would still be more than a dog's bowl of a poundage of food, of 2, 3, 4 pounds of food,
yes,
would still be less
yes,
expensive than an inmate. And you have to still ask yourself, what are we doing? Not saying that an inmate
right.
should be eating 30 some cents
No, they should be eating food that is nutritious.
yes.
Meet their needs, absolutely.
But I mean, it's like the two comparisons to that side are they're
Yeah.
scary because they are similar. I think it's a dollar something a meal per inmate, something to that weird
Well,
number,
or
maybe less.
really, wow. Well, or think about the value menu, the dollar menu at McDonald's.
Here we go back to
You can
McDonald's.
get back to McDonald's. You can get a burger at McDonald's for $1.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how much meat versus filler is in that burger, but we know there's a bun, there's some token lettuce and vegetable matter.
No, they don't have lettuce.
Nutrient analysis of that.
They don't
It
do
has
lettuce at
yeah.
McDonald's. Not on their cheeseburgers. No, there's no lettuce.
Oh, no?
That's still
I
Burger
thought they
King.
were.
Yeah, it's other fast food
Okay.
places. Yeah. It's really strange. There is no vegetable. Oh, no, I take that back. You get a pickle or two if you're lucky.
You get
Yeah.
a pickle.
Yes.
On the regular, well, this tells you how often I eat at McDonald's.
Yeah.
But, so, yeah. I know the pickle thing because it was pickle, ketchup, and mustard.
Yes. Yes.
But even if you said a Big Mac,
yes, that's different. There's a little bit of lettuce.
Raw beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onion, and sesame seed bun. I worked at McDonald's when I was a kid. But yeah, then you've got lettuce and things and the dressing and 3 pieces of bread and 2 burgers of unknown proportion of meat to soy filler.
Unknown substance of meat.
Yeah.
And the only reason why you knew what was on a Big Mac, and I recognize it, that was part of a commercial. I remember that commercial. Yes, I remember that. So you recited that perfect. So anybody who was going, I know that. Why do I know that?
I used to be able to recite it backwards if you want to be really smart.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah. But could a person survive eating a Big Mac every day? Yes, they could survive. They would not be healthy. It would not be good for them. But would they get calories and protein and fat and some, carbs and vegetables? Yeah.
There was a doc on that. There's a documentary came out over a decade.
Yeah.
Supersize. Was it Supersize or Supersize Me?
The guy who, Supersize Me. The guy who ate McDonald's. I think he ate every meal there, though.
Yeah, for 30 days?
And, yeah. I think he did make the 30 days, but he was feeling really, really sick by the end of it. And his doctor wanted him to stop.
Yes.
And thinking of AFCO food trials, just to circle back, he saw his doctor at the beginning and got baseline blood work and data and was seen regularly. And his doctor kept saying, look at how much worse you are. You need to stop. And it was very enlightening. That's probably also on Netflix, guys. Watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Worth it.
If I'm not mistaken, and it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I thought that he suffered diabetes towards the, when it all came out. He had,
or at least was pre-diabetic. Yeah.
Yeah. It was something to that effect. I remember something really strange. It was like, whoa, that was that came out of nowhere.
And he ate French fries at least once a day, if not twice. Which, just thinking of their French fries are really bad.
Oh yeah.
And the oils, and supposedly they're upgrading the oils they fry them in and stuff. But that's not good. You don't eat fried food. 2 meals a day, even 1 meal a day.
And see, that's always been that's been our baseline. Kind of going into it, or as we said the last time, the lead standard. I wanted to bring that one back. But
yes, I like that one.
The lead standard was, we don't feed ourselves fried. I mean, you think to yourself, you don't eat fried food even once a week, let alone every meal. I mean, I know we're beating a dead horse that most likely Big Pet Food will try to swoop in and put into their food. But,
right.
We're beating it until there's nothing left, but it's the reality of, look at these trials, look at what's going on, look at the lies that they're selling, and you're just going,
right.
What?
And under the guise of health, they're saying, well, we did a feeding trial. And, I do know some of the companies do longer stage trials and stuff, but nobody's talking about those. These experts, and might as well call them out, the World Small Animal Association, Veterinary Association, WSAVMA, World Small Animal Veterinary Association. Their criteria are being touted as the experts, and the first thing they want is a full-time nutritionist on staff. Well, what the heck does who you employ have to do with the food you make? Because there are expert formulators and nutritionists who work on a freelance basis. You can get access to the best minds in the world anytime you want, but you have to have them on your staff all year or every year. What the heck? What is that? That's meaningless to me. And
I just want to know what they're doing.
I don't know. They're having coffee, I guess.
That's like having a fireman in Alaska, in Antarctica. There's no point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're walking around and doing their thing, but are they really contributing to the quality of the food?
Nope.
No, I think the people who are doing your sourcing, the people who are doing your formulating are far more important. And I personally would want a freelance individual who's bringing to me a wealth of experience from working with a variety of companies and who's not entrenched in the company culture and is going to think independently. I mean, think about the people, the vets or nutritionists who work for, Big Pet Food. Well, Big Pet Food's first ingredient is corn. That's the only way they know how to formulate. It has to start with corn. If you're in that stagnant environment all that time, that's what you're going to do, rather than some of these folks who say, hey, what if we looked at some interesting proteins or some ancient grains or some different vegetables? Let's open our minds. And then, their second criteria is who formulates your foods. And their third is the stupid go feeding trials. The fourth question they ask is where your foods are produced and manufactured, and that is certainly valid. Who makes it and how do they make it? But nobody will ever tell you that. No food company.
No.
They'll say we have plants in this state, or we have plants in the U.S. But no, they're not going to tell you, because they don't want to tell you that they don't make their own food, that they use a co-packer who's been implicated in pet food recalls for other brands.
Which brings up a very interesting observation and more or less, I would say, conspiracy theory that we were talking about. I had this epiphany this morning and thought, I'm going to talk to you about it because, oh my gosh, can you just imagine that this is happening right now, or could be? Because again, and I love your comment, you said, This is a Susan Thixton kind of moment.
Oh yeah.
But definitely the question that I'm having is with government shutdown, you have your FDA not there. Your Department of Agriculture not there. So we already know that the Big Pet Food has sourced meat that has pentobarbital in it. We know this. It's out there.
Right.
They've done it most likely through the night. They brought it in. But now that there's nobody watching, we can do this during the daytime. Who's going to know?
Yeah.
Bizarre.
Nobody.
No.
Well, or violate any other laws, which they do with impunity as they violate the federal the laws that relate to adulterating food, meaning it's ingredients from animals that have died by means other than slaughter. Those are technically illegal in pet food, illegal to ship across state lines. But basically, they've been told, look, we'll look the other way when it comes to that because it's for pet food.
Well, we're not even there. We're not even there right now. So what you do, hey, you know what, during the shutdown, we don't know.
Yeah, we can't know. I agree. And you know, I feel for those employees who, you know, lost their jobs or, well, didn't lose their jobs.
Frozen.
You know, frozen. And supposedly they can get a free loan from federal credit unions against their back pay. But I don't know if that's true and how much, you know, what's the timing. These people are not getting paychecks.
Right.
It's tragic.
Yeah, and a lot of them are really, you know, they're not involved in any of this. The ones that are affected are just doing the good work. We're not talking about the ones who are looking the other way that are saying, well, we know what you're doing, we just don't want to pay attention.
Well, I mean, one of the key groups that seem to be affected that are still, most of them are still on the line, are the TSA agents. Now, I mean, come on, we need those TSA agents at airports doing their job.
Yes.
But if they're not getting paid, I don't blame them for calling and saying, look, I'm not coming. But, you know, that's a huge security risk that someone could be missed.
It is.
Shouldn't be flying.
And so it's, you know, one of those things of, oh, crud, I didn't even think about any of this stuff. I mean, you know, we can all submerge ourselves in politics and what's going on, and everyone's going to have their own opinion on it, which is great.
Sure.
It's more of the, oh, wow, this is what's happening that's affecting not only me, my safety, my family's safety, my dogs and cats. It's affecting everything. And I mean, I don't care which side you're rooting for. It doesn't matter. What matters is this is happening, and who knows what's going to happen with this.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
So that's scary.
There's so many, that's scary. And, you know, everybody has their opinions, as you've said, and thinks they have the right course of action, but bottom line, we need to keep the country running.
Yes.
And we need to figure out a way.
And you know what? I don't have an opinion. I'm one of those that I'm like, I'm not in politics. I don't.
I think as I was reviewing it, there's been a shutdown of government through every presidency.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, of a day, of 2 days, you know, they didn't get the budget in. And it's like, guys, you knew the budget was coming up. Would you get yourselves in gear? But this one seems to be one of the most contentious and the longest.
Yeah, it is the longest in history as of now. So, but, you know, that's where I always say that's for the politicians to deal with. We can all quarterback the whole thing.
And the only thing that bugs me is Congress and the Senate are not having their pay held.
Yes, that is true. That is very true.
And it's like, you know, you're a public servant too. If the TSA workers, the park workers, whoever are not getting paid, we should be fair. We should be straight across the board. You know?
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
And hopefully everybody gets paid back what they're owed, in my world, with interest. But
hey, if they get paid, if they can just get what their pay was, even without the interest, I'd be happy.
Get what they're owed.
Yeah, I'd be happy with just that. Lastly, because as always, we run as long as we do, and
Way
I
over
love every
time.
minute. Well, I don't think
Yeah.
that there is such a thing as overtime. I think what we have is undertime. And I will say this on a side note. We've talked about this, privately. We've had this conversation of how do we shut this conversation down to less than an hour and a half. And I just discovered another podcast, obviously different topic, but their show goes 2 hours. And I was saying, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can handle. I had to take it in little bits and pieces because I'm like, 2 hours is just too much. So, but hour and a half, goes. But there was something that I loved, and it was another one of your articles on delay her spay. And I wanted to kind of dive onto that one as well.
Sure. What part of it did really caught you?
Well, what drove me originally was delay her spay. We delayed our main Akita. We delayed her spay. Mm-hmm. And as we know, we had accidental birth, our puppies, which it does, but she didn't have a heat. I want to say she didn't have a heat for a year, and she's 9 and hated men. So that was kind of an odd thing. And it was accidental. Now, that's going to happen. Now, with her, we delayed her spay just because we never had a male. Now, with our male, we were going to delay the male for 3 years because he's an American Akita as well. And we wanted to make his growth plates come all the way through and be able to fully mature.
We want him to fully mature, absolutely.
Right. So, my question is, what is the approximate amount of time that you should wait until you start considering having your female? Because I always hate that other term for a female dog. That drives me nuts. We've had that conversation for millions of minutes, it seems like. But
and I actually embrace it, coming from the show dog side of things, and having my girls. And I always, and please forgive me if this is improper, I have a red try and a black try, and I refer to one as my red bitch and one as my black bitch. And somebody who doesn't know me, if I say, oh, my black bitch was driving me crazy this morning, I get some funny looks. But they both embody the attitude, the
persona.
I don't know. The persona, the naughtiness, the sweetness, all the things that are all the feminine.
Yes.
So, it just suits them.
It's accurate. You're right. It's accurate. I just always feel like I'm being insulted. It's one of those that, we were talking before about Howard Stern before we went and started recording.
Right.
And I'm very cautious of what I'm going to say in that factor. Obviously, I don't want to insult my wife. I don't want to insult somebody else's wife or mother or daughter.
Right, or any woman.
Right. So I'm very cautious. And then I look at my dog, and my dog is one of my children. So I'm like, I don't want to say, that's this is the bitch to my puppy. I don't know. It just drives me to that point. But you are correct. It is an accurate term, and it does fit to some.
And in the dog show and dog breeding vernacular, a dog is male.
Yes.
And, if I say to you, you're such a dog, that's insulting too.
True.
So it kind of cuts both ways. But
true.
I don't know. It's to me it's a term of endearment, and you go to a dog show and you're like, oh, let's have the 6-month-old puppy bitches in the ring, please. And it's like, oh, okay, this is just who they are. It's just normal.
It's proper verbiage. That's really at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's just traditional verbiage.
Yeah. And see, for me,
I say, the 6-month-old females.
Right.
No, it's the puppy bitches.
Right. And
if you're good, you're winner's bitch.
Yes.
That means you get championship points, or winner's dog for that matter. So a whole different subject. But anyway, ages to stay. Going to depend on the size of the breed and the breed. The bigger they are, the longer I wait. We know that some of the pelvic bones growth plates typically close around 18 months or so, give or take. We want that dog to have full skeletal growth completed before we take away hormones.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't, if we take away hormones too soon, that actually delays growth plate closure, which means the legs grow out of proportion.
Mm-hmm.
That predisposes you, especially in the hind limb, to cruciate ligament tears.
Mm-hmm.
And we also know it predisposes to some increased cancer risk and other issues. And there's a really interesting study about temperament and aggressiveness. And guess what? Dogs who have their hormones, who have their parts, are less aggressive than spayed or neutered dogs.
Really?
Yes.
I would have gone the other way.
Most people would. But if you think about it from a biology, evolutionary standpoint, your job as part of the species is to reproduce. You can't reproduce if you're getting in fights, getting injured, and dying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's far better, you have your hormones, you're geared towards reproduction and continuation of the species, to be able to solve disputes without aggression, but with, body language communication and such. You take those things away, or really you take them away as pediatrics, as many shelters do. These dogs don't grow up communicating in normal body language, and their aggression and fear-based aggression becomes a huge issue. And there's a great study, it was done in Vizslas, enumerating some of these things. Also, storm and noise phobia, far more common in the spayed and neutered than the intact, which I found really fascinating.
Now, is it because they have less for male testosterone and even for a female, so they're not able to have that strength, that fearlessness?
You're such a guy, Chris.
Sorry.
You have to remember that testosterone gets converted to estrogen.
That's the word.
To be in an active form. So it's all about the estrogen that us girls have.
That's right.
And that you boys have to do. But, whether it's that or whether it's alteration of the fear response because you didn't have hormones when you were learning how to be fearful, I don't know. But the paper is out there. And it's kind of interesting. And I mean, my personal experience is skewed because I do live with a lot of intact dogs because of showing and breeding.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, I have less experience with neutered dogs than I do with I have less experience with spayed and neutered dogs than I do with intact dogs in my own household.
I knew what estrogen was. It just wasn't coming to the brain. It was like, it was there, but it wasn't dropping down. Yep. So, I was like, well.
And remember, in utero, everything starts out as female.
True.
And then depending on what, Mullerian factor, I'm drawing on my embryology, there is a biochemical that is produced that activates or changes the estrogen production to testosterone production, and your fetus becomes male.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, everything is female.
Which I always find is very interesting because, again, I do result, more or less, I can say I'm more towards the sensitivity because I have a daughter, so I don't have as much of that stupid, personality. But, of course, like every male, before you slow down and you lose that, you're very testosterone based. But it's like I look at Katana, and of course after she had to have a C-section, and she got fixed at such a late age too. I was worried. I was definitely worried. But oddly enough, now she's at 9. She's even better as a dog now. She knows how to dog now. Let's put it that way. She couldn't dog before. She dogs. I'm like, what? She can play with toys.
Yeah. Well, and, with a rescue dog, there's so much baggage that some of them come with.
Yes.
And you don't know, who they are until you work through whatever.
Right.
And,
Well, yeah.
I look at rescue dog on one end of the spectrum, and my experience with a puppy that's born in my house that has known me in utero, so to speak, and certainly from the moment of birth. And that's the whole other end.
Yes.
And then there's everything in between.
Right.
Whether the dog comes to you at 8 weeks, or I've had dogs come to me at 5 months. And, they all become part of your family.
Right.
And, you're always their person. But it is a very different experience taking on, like my dog that came to me around age 10, even though he'd known me before. He was pretty uncertain the first month. Versus, my girls and my one boy that live with me now, that were born in my house. I mean, they know my every nuance and have, from the beginning. And even the puppies that left, that went to other homes, when they see me, they are ballistic. And it doesn't matter if it's been 8 years. They know me. There's
just by voice.
Imprinting. Yes. Oh, yes. I've been banned from showgrounds or the vicinity of the show ring, or told you can watch from a distance, but do not open your mouth, because if she hears you, she will be over the moon and can't think.
That's funny.
It really is. It really is. But, it also means I've done my job. I've raised that puppy to be connected to people. And I was the first connection, so I'm the strongest. But, they learn how to connect to others, and they go on to be great family members.
And again, why are we feeding them garbage?
Thank you. Why are we not? Well, I have an answer for that.
Oh, okay.
Because we don't know any better.
Well, we do.
Well, but we get sold.
Okay, that's better.
We get marketed to.
Good point.
And I have people, when I talk in office calls, nobody ever told me this. If I had known then what I know now, I would be doing differently.
True. That's true. Well, we have officially run out of time. So the question is what do we want to let everybody go on their merry way? Probably picked up this podcast 3 times to finish it, or we got them through work. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. But what should we leave them with? Yeah, right. What would you like to leave them with?
Read my stuff. Read my blog. Let me share information with you at healthydogworkshop.com. If you want to come to the expo and sit down and have lunch, I'll have lunch with you on April 6th. healthydogexpo.com. Learn more for your dog. Do better. Yeah. Do the best you can.
And if you think that I don't read her stuff, you're wrong. I read it. I send her a message right away, and I'm probably like the biggest nerd when I go through it. Like I'm geeking out like a science nerd over different things. It's kind of sad. I know.
Well, and science is cool. And
I love it.
If you can keep an open mind and ask good questions, you will do so much better for yourself, your dog, your children, whatever you care about. There's lots of fascinating, cool info out there, and we can always do a little bit better.
We can always.
And it's fun.
It is. Well, that's just it. I don't look at it as, I'm fine that it's a nerdy thing to be involved in. I'm cool with that. That's fine. I just know I geek out really bad over it. That, my wife is like, all right, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. No, you wouldn't believe. I will spend the entire night thinking about hair analysis now because of this. I hope. I hope I don't talk about this. If I do radio after this, I hope I don't talk about this. I promise. I really hope I don't.
Well, I hope you get on the regular radio as well as doing the podcast.
That would be fun.
I think that will be fantastic and fun.
Why not add more to the day? I mean, I don't do anything as it is. I even told you that before we even got into this. I don't do anything all day, so why not? Mm-hmm. Well, we probably should say goodbye to everybody before they lose their mind. Well, I'm Chris Green. Have a pet-tastic week, and
I'm Dr. Lori COGER. Have a fantastic week.
Bye-bye, everybody.
And girls, and the dogs say goodbye too.
Okay, gotta go in my bedtime.